It's a beautiful morning. I think I'll go outside for a while and just smile. Just taking some clean
Hello everyone and welcome to another COH replay cast. This time around is your host, me Bernard, COH, whatever you want to know me better as. Now, if you notice I said this time around, if you've been following the channel at all, Ryan has been doing a bit of solo work of his own, and he's been trying to mutinize me and capture my sinking ship. How dare he? Oh, I'm only joking. I'm actually very happy for Ryan. He used to do casting of his own in the past, so I like that he is doing what he's enjoying. He obviously gets a kick out of it, a kick out of you guys, and so it is very good that, he's doing what he enjoys. So here we're just starting with a bit of a scenic view for you guys. This is a 1v1 on Angoville, and I am staring at a bush. Now you might be asking me, why am I staring at a bush? And that is because I don't take this replay seriously whatsoever. Now the reason I don't take it seriously is very entertaining, do not get me wrong. I'm sure you guys will enjoy this as much as I did, but it's so unconventional and so... I don't even know, twisted and circus-like. I'm sure you guys will find out. So if you just look right off the bat, 19 seconds into the game, JawolopingChris2, totally butchering his name there. 19 seconds into the game and finally moving his units. So usually you guys are rushing right away, trying to maximize your time, but he is taking 19 seconds. Maybe he was just spending a bit too much time on the toilet. I'm not exactly sure. But it's good to see that he's back. So he's going to be versing Mr. LuckySTILET on the northern side as the Wehrmacht. So it is a vanilla matchup this time around. Now then guys, before we get on to the actual casting part of the game, I'll let you guys watch it. But let's talk about the channel a little bit, because obviously I've had a bit of an absence. And, I first want to apologize for that, but then again, maybe I shouldn't apologize because it is exams after all, and it is prioritizing the important things in life. So I'm very certain that a lot of you guys are in a similar position, having to do your exams, and if not right now, I'm sure it was like that in the past. Now, exams, pros and cons of exams. I'm sure you guys absolutely hated them. They probably were a lot of waste of time and sort of stuff like that. And I totally understand that. And I agree on that respect that it takes up a lot of time. But then again, I think there should be a bit of an appreciation. I think we should all start an appreciation society or something for exams. Because if you guys don't know, I'm actually doing pharmacy. And you might be asking me, what does pharmacy have to do with anything? All you do is dispense medicines, and funnily enough, yes, we do dispense medicines, but we have to understand what they work, how they work. Funnily enough, pharmacists actually know more about how medicines work than general practitioners. So your doctor that you might go see, we actually know more than them about it, and that's why we have to liaise with the doctors a lot of times. So pharmacy in general, it's actually, I have a very big appreciation for the subject because my field is science. I've always enjoyed the whole thing about understanding how this world works, and especially just the anatomy of the body. Because if you think about it a bit, guys, the anatomy, I mean, your body just functions as it does. It works perfectly. Sometimes it goes wrong, but we actually have no idea how it works. It just happens. And I just get this sort of appreciation that, I actually sort of understand a bit now in a small respect, a very limited scope. I actually understand a bit of how things work. And just sort of funny, like usually when you're watching the news or something like that, they might tell you, okay, you gotta lower your cholesterol, you've got to take aspirin, it makes you healthy, and you might be just taking that for word. But then again, there's a whole sort of basis that comes behind this sort of thing. And like for example, if we're going to talk about cholesterol, like why do they say cholesterol is bad and why you should take it down? First off, cholesterol is not totally bad. There is a lot of good things for it. You do need a certain extent of cholesterol in order to maintain vascular health and to keep your blood pressure going properly. But then again, an excess amount of cholesterol is linked to basically combining all this fatty stuff, all these fatty foods that you eat. So when this cholesterol combines with the lipids and sort of stuff like that, they combine together, and these are taken up by macrophage. The macrophage, when they come to the cell wall linings of your blood vessels, they get a bit hooked onto them, And basically, that is when you start forming plaques, and that is when you're going to start getting problems in your arteries, your blood vessels. And so you really don't want to have that sort of thing going about, because then you start getting your angina, your heart attacks, and I know you guys are probably zoning out already. But that's the whole understanding and basis that comes about behind some of these things. And it's just nice to know that there's a whole sort of world and understanding that comes behind these sort of things. Now then again, I know you guys are a very open audience. There's probably loads of people that are doing different stuff apart from pharmacy. There's probably a whole bunch of other degrees, probably computer related, engineering related. Some of you are probably still in school. Some of you are probably just working. That's all pretty cool. So I think it's all a very nice thing that there's a large audience there, and I think we should all respect that we all have a part to play in this world. So anyway, guys, let's get on to the replay before I get lost in talking about more stuff about cholesterol and how aspirin is great for you. If you guys are a bit interested in that, maybe I can talk about it in a future replay in more detail. But that's up to you guys. Anyway, so if you guys have been noticing, there's a WSC start from Mr. Chris. A WSC start from an American. Now that is very unusual, especially on a 1v1 match. You might see that in 2v2 and so on and so forth when you're combining forces. Now, if we're talking about a WSC, that is in a way you have pros and cons. So let's lay out the pros. So the pros is that you get a mixture of units. You get to have suppressing power. You get to have snipers. You get to have mortars out before the Wehrmacht. Now, if we're going to talk about the cons, basically you're shooting yourself in the foot. So what a lot of these strategies nowadays focus on is that there needs to be some sort of capitalization on your mobility as the Americans, and using to your advantage the fact that you have riflemen and engineers on the field, and thus more manpower floating about to cap away at stuff. So by going for WSC, you're basically relying heavily on just the engineers that you built, and so that is why I say you shot yourself in the foot, because you're in a very bad position. And so basically, Chris is just throwing out a whole bunch of MGs at the moment. He has one over here. He actually has engineers over here and an MG in his base. Wow! So if you guys have already been noticing, this is a circus right off the bat. He's actually been going in through this little hole over here and sneaked around into his base. So quite interesting stuff that is going on. This is definitely going to be a LOLs match. A lot of unconventional stuff that might make you sort of laugh. So we have a bit of MGs down on the field right now. Some motorbikes. I like this response by the Wehrmacht. Obviously, whenever you recognize that your opponent is going for a WSC start, even though it might be so rare and basically never happen in a 1v1, a very appropriate way to respond to that is to go for snipers or motorbikes, just because you can stop any future snipers coming out, and that is what usually WSC starts focus on, getting snipers. So you might go for your 4ES. So I'm thinking maybe LuckySTILET is thinking this is a 4ES start, but funnily enough, this is too late to be a 4ES start. There's machine guns, too many machine guns anyway, on the field. So we do have this mixture of units, just basically machine guns and engineers. If Chris is going to have any chance of actually getting around and capping the map on Angoville here, he's going to really need to, I don't know, capitalize on some sort of mobility. Obviously, he's not going to get this mobility from his MGs. He needs his engineers to be going about and capping all the time. But at the moment, guys, these MGs are actually doing a fun enough, decent job. They're heavily damaging the motorbikes. I'm not exactly sure why there are 2 motorbikes on the field. Maybe Stilet was expecting a bit more than MGs. He was probably expecting snipers, no doubt. But I think, to be honest, one motorcycle is enough. Anything more is a bit excessive. And the reason I say that is just because that motorcycles, they're very limited in what they can do. They can pretty much just flank stuff and shoot down snipers, and that's about it. So in the later game, they become very limited. So I think 1 is usually enough. And then if you start focusing on some snipers to counter the American snipers, then yeah, they'll be doing a decent enough job. And so here we have LuckySTILET with his 2 snipers on the field. So going to do a very good job at countering snipers with this mixture of motorcycle sniper strategy. Also very good at taking out any MGs. And as we can see, shot in the foot. So lucky our Chris is actually hardly has any mobility. And I actually do like what Chris was doing. He focused heavily on the fuel, and at the moment he has 26 fuel, obviously being cut off and in sort of a bad position. But that gave him enough time to actually put down a supply yard very quick into the game, 9 minutes, and the tank depot as well. So this strategy, very unconventional in its nature. Maybe he had a bit of planning beforehand, and he most likely did. I couldn't imagine many players just jumping right into this and expecting it to work. He obviously was thinking that, okay, I'll try to get a bunch of MGs down and try and hold down the fuel points, and that was what he was doing. He was also being very harassive, as you guys saw, getting into the Wehrmacht's base. But by doing that, he also, by doing WSC, he doesn't have to spend as much fuel in terms of getting any upgrades for the bars and grenades and all the other stuff and that like. So he saves a lot of fuel, and that is why he has an early tank depot out. And now this is a very big danger for Mr. STILET. STILET needs to realize, okay, if there's no WSC start, then he needs to be thinking about possible early tank rushes. That could be an early M8, that could be an early tank depot even. Although tank depots are much less frequent to occur, it is a definite possibility, and as we can see in this game, it is happening. So maybe a very appropriate way to respond in this situation would be to go for Blitzkrieg. And let's see if the doctrine is chosen yet, and no, it is not chosen yet. I believe the Axis is waiting, and that is absolutely fine. But a good way to actually counter all these early M8s and possible tank depot is by going for Blitzkrieg and going the left hand side and go for Stormtroopers, because when you have Stormtroopers you can skip T2 instead of going for Grenadiers. You can get those Stormtroopers out very quick. You can they have camouflage and so on and so forth. They're very good at taking out tanks. Get a few Panzerschrecks, and there you go. So we'll really have to see what happens with that. These motorbikes are still going about on the field. Bit of snipers just walking about, taking a bit of shots on the engineers, but nothing really much at the moment. Just seems a bit of harassing. Just all of them, just both players setting up for what is to come. And if we look in terms of the doctrine abilities at the moment, we do have field repairs from the American player. So he has gone for left-hand side of armor doctrine. And so that means if he keeps on going down this way, he will be able to get a Pershing later in the game. Now that is something to consider as well. If you're going to be going for a heavy tank strategy, do you want to go for field repairs or do you want to go for Allied War Machine? Now field repairs is 150 ammunition. On this map, Angoville, that is absolutely quite fine because you do get a lot of ammunition income. And also likewise, Allied War Machine is 50 ammunition more than field repairs. That's at 200 ammunition. So you really want to be considering these things into effect as how they will affect you in the future. Now, if you're going to be going for heavy tanks, I suppose I could totally understand the field repairs. If you're going to be going for mass swarms and need to repair them, then fair enough, go for it, because the field repairs last for 20 seconds, 15 HP per second. So it's very good when you're able to have that out, because M10s I believe have something around 400 or so HP. So if you guys do the math, 20 times 15, 300, right? So that's almost its entire health. And I actually like what is going on right now. This Wehr M10 is so early on the field, guys. As you can see, I'm guessing STILET must have been a very smart player to actually realize that this was going to happen. He actually put down mines in his base, and the reason he would have done that is because a lot of players, when they're going for a very fast early strategy with tanks, M8s for example, is that they like coming into the base and being very harassive. So by having 3 mines down, you're actually negating that sort of rush into your base. And if you guys saw there, we had a bit of a field repair coming onto the field. The Stormtroopers taking a bit of casualties as well. But the field repair coming down, if you guys actually look at the resources, 159 and counting resources for the American at the moment. This strategy, his strategy, obviously if he doesn't have much in terms of infantry, it's very heavily dependent on this M10 being successful. And that's why you had to make sure that these mines did not destroy this tank, and he didn't lose his M10, or else this strategy could have not worked so early on in the game. And 150 ammunition, no problem, because lots of ammunition coming in. I absolutely love what's going on here. This is a bit of vehicle blocking. So using micromanagement, LuckySTILET doing a very good job of the little motorcycles there. Now we had the American actually giving in. He obviously recognized, oh, I'm blocked, there's no way of getting out of there. He actually tried reversing his way into the stormtroopers, preventing them from standing still and getting their Panzerschrecks off, and most importantly, running them down. So M10s, funnily enough, are actually quite notorious for their running over capabilities. If I'm going to throw out a bit of opinion. Now, I don't actually really like throwing out my opinions in the replay cast, because I don't like you guys disagreeing, and why would I want to start an argument with you guys? But if I'm going to throw out my opinion about the M10s, I do believe they're a bit excessive in their crush abilities. They do seem to abnormally crush infantry better than other tanks. So it's quite common that whenever you get swarms of M10s, that funnily enough, grenadiers and stormtroopers will have a very hard time of taking them out, because they'll just all simply get crushed by them. Now, I don't actually believe there's a difference in the crush abilities of the tanks, but maybe it's just the speed. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but the M10s are definitely quite notorious for what they can do. So we have the American just capping away with his MGs, obviously realizing that, okay, MG, you have done your job, I do not need you anymore, you can go about capping, whilst my engineers can keep on capping, and I will focus on my M10s. So we have this M10 over here, another one. This will be the second one, I believe. And yeah, so just going about taking a bit of shots, being chased by the stormtroopers. So if we're going to be talking about LuckySTILET's choice of doctrine, guys, then he went for Blitzkrieg and left-hand side. So that means that he will be able to get the armored support later, so the Stud, the Tiger, and so that it could be a very effective way of countering future tanks. And obviously we recognize that the American is going for a heavy sort of tank strategy, and he's got his field repairs, obviously going to be going for a lot of tanks. So he's definitely focusing, LuckySTILET is definitely focusing on the anti-tank at the moment. The anti-infantry is totally handled with. And now we do have the Panzer Command out from LuckySTILET, and I do like his choice of the Panzer IV. If you look at his fuel, he did have enough for the Panther, but the good thing about the Panzer IV is that it's both sort of in between the Ostwind and in between the Panther, so that it can still be sort of anti-infantry, anti-tank, and it'll be good support for all the stormtroopers and their abilities at taking out future tanks. So, if we're going to be talking about Mr. Chris, he is on the sort of back foot at the moment. He only has a bit of engineers, a bit of MGs, so not much in terms of unit capability. He does have another M10, I believe, coming out, and yes, it is another M10, so very heavily capitalizing on the fact that he is going to be going for armor. And so, fair enough, that's his strategy, and that is what's going to happen. But I do like how Mr. STILET is responding to all of this. He is getting his tanks out, he is building more Panzer IVs, he's getting more stormtroopers. He's obviously recognizing that there's going to be more tanks on the field, so really needs to see what happened. I would like to see the stormtroopers, and maybe this is what they're going to do, but I would like to see the stormtroopers actually attack the base. And here we go, they are attacking the base, and this is what I absolutely love, because Chris is going to have a very hard time at taking out infantry. He did lose a few of his MGs there. He still has some, but they are on the field. So in terms of anti-infantry, very, very limited at the moment. There's not